show a beginning of a long period or maybe a short period of major change. Sushant, the setting is all right. The only thing that's uncertain is the American election. So all of this, then the result of the American election, Trump comes in, and we could have a very different end to the year. Very different end to the year. But what happens if Kamala comes in?
I don't know. Joseph was very confident that the result we'll know on November 5th. But if American elections are anything to go by, you might not know the results ever because or it might take weeks, maybe months, court cases. It's a broken election system. There are the kind of allegations we used to hear in India in the 1970s and 80s when you still had, the ballot boxes and stuff like that, and you had booth capturing and fake voting and stuff like that. That's the United States today. Imagine this is supposedly the superpower, the hyperpower of the world. And they can't run an election, their election machinery is broken, the electoral system is broken. So I don't know. Let's hope that they can throw up a result on 5th of November. And it's a result which everyone accepts. For example, in India, regardless of whether you like the outcome of an election or not, everybody accepts the result, and you move forward. In the United States, nobody accepts the result anymore. It's more like Pakistan now.
Oh, well, let's see. The problem also...
budget, but on a more substantive note, I heard some very optimistic noises from our Russian friends out here. I'm afraid I'm not as optimistic as they are. That might be the Russian position, that they don't see either people in Europe or in the United States as their enemy, and probably it is the Russian position. I'm not so confident whether that's the position in the United States and in Europe. In large parts of Western Europe, they look at, even though their countries are being destroyed from inside through migration and all sorts of other things, they still consider the greatest existential threat to them coming from Russia. The same is the case with the Americans, that once they've declared someone their enemy, regardless of the fact that for almost 20 odd years, even longer, they had reasonably good relations with Russia. But the moment any state starts exercising a degree of autonomy, of action, I think that pisses off the Americans. They cannot handle it. They want a country to be subservient. They want a country to be entirely obsequious to them. And one of the reasons why we see the kind of new fronts that have been opened up against India, whether it's in relation to Bangladesh, what's happened out there, whether it's on this whole Khalistani issue, which they seem to be pandering and sponsoring and supporting, it is because they think that India is not obedient enough. India is not being obsequious to them. India is not listening to them. India is keeping autonomy, of action in its store. And that's something they don't want.
They'll have to change the way, Sushant, they look at things.
Plus to sit, we should sit.
Yeah, they'll have to change the way they look at things. For me, the bigger...
Arnab, come on. Look, it takes a long time for an imperial power, which in some ways the United States is, to understand that...
So I take your point. I take your point.
When the Zamidar's serf becomes the IAS officer in India, the Zamidar can't handle it.
I tell you here, Americans will have to understand nobody is their serf. But I'll tell you the real problem in America. The real problem in America is that they have become insular. They know more about Taylor Swift than what is happening in the rest of the world. That is America's problem. They are not engaged with the rest of the world. And I think when half the world's population comes together in Kazan and are holding hands together, and America is not invited to the party, then the Americans need to make this a subject of their political debate.